What happens when Hollywood elegance meets unapologetic political satire live on a major talk show and one of the most polished public figures on the planet breaks down? What you're about to see paved the way for an emotional and explosive moment that'll have you double-checking if it was real or orchestrated. Before we dive into this unfiltered moment, hit that subscribe button. Give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment. Do you think Meghan held her ground or did she fold under fire? Picture the scene. Bill Maher's dark, sleek HBO studio. Late-night lights glimmer on Meghan Markle as she's introduced. The audience buzzes, curious, anticipatory. Meghan takes her seat, elegant in calm confidence, clearly expecting a thoughtful conversation about her advocacy, her new projects, perhaps even her family. The stage is set, but Maher isn't in the mood for niceties. He leans forward, gaze steady and unfiltered. "Meghan, you speak passionately about women and equality. But some critics say that your public image is built on curated messaging, not authentic connection. Why should anyone believe you're real and not rehearsed?" A hush falls. Meghan draws a steady breath. "I speak based on my experiences, my work. I've always been committed to sharing the platform with voices that can't be heard." Maher doesn't smile. "Right, but your narrative is tied to brand partnerships, talking points, a BC deals that colors the authenticity you claim." That's the moment the tone shifts. The polished veneer begins to crack just a fraction, but enough. Meghan's posture stiffens. She pulls some facts, some quotes, some earnest passion, but Maher pivots ruthlessly. "You say you want change, but sometimes it feels like you want publicity. You lean into suffering a classroom of victimhood and refuse to address how it benefits your image." Her lips part, silence hangs. Then I... Before she finishes, Maher goes in for the kill. "You came here to talk purpose, but are you ready to face questions about purpose or just your productions?" That's when Meghan's composure fractures visibly. A tremor in her voice. A moment of hesitation. And then tears unmistakable, streaming down her cheeks. She bows her head, voice quivering. "That's enough." She stands. The studio goes silent. No booming soundtrack. No thunder. Just a sense of stunned disbelief. Meghan walks off camera, her dignity intact, but her control surrendered, leaving the cameras focused on an empty chair, Maher's gaze lingering, the atmosphere thick with tension no one could ignore. And just like that, the clip exploded. Social media blew up within minutes. Mega meltdown, Bill Maher walk off. Reaction videos emerged before the show even ended. The internet was fractured. Some rushed to defend her, invoking trauma and intense media pressure. Others pounced, questioning if she'd been transparent enough. That silent exit, it spoke louder than any scripted quote. Because Meghan didn't just walk away. She flipped the script and made the world stop and wonder why. Backstage at the HBO studio, Meghan Markle was met not with chaos but with calculated silence. Her team was already in motion. Phones buzzed. Security stood alert. The producers, visibly stunned, exchanged brief glances as she disappeared behind the curtain. It wasn't the exit they had prepped for, nor the tone they had expected. And yet, here it was, one of the most high-profile media breakdowns in recent television memory, unfolding in real time. Outside, show resumed, but the room felt heavier. Bill Maher, ever the performer, attempted to move on, pivoting to his monologue with a dry jab. "Well, I guess we touched a nerve." It earned a reluctant laugh, but the damage had been done. No one was talking about the next segment. They were talking about her tears. About that moment. About what it meant. Immediately after the show ended, social media exploded. Video clips were already circulating with captions like "unscripted breakdown," "Meghan snaps under pressure," and "Maher's brutal takedown goes too far." Public opinion split sharply down the middle. One side viewed it as a long overdue reality check, a call-out of perceived hypocrisy and media curation. The other saw it as a bullying moment, a man with a platform using sarcasm and skepticism to corner a woman whose every move is already dissected beyond reason. But inside the studio, it wasn't just about social media trends. It was about optics. The show's producers were in immediate damage control mode. ABO executives demanded internal reports, wondering how the segment got so volatile so fast. Meanwhile, Meghan's publicist issued a carefully crafted statement within hours. The Duchess of Sussex appeared on real time to speak sincerely about her work and values. She was met with unexpected hostility and disrespect and chose to remove herself from the situation with dignity. That word dignity was echoed in every media outlet that covered it. But others didn't buy it. Conservative commentators seized the opportunity, dubbing it the Duchess meltdown and questioning whether she could handle unscripted moments without the comfort of curated interviews. Progressive voices, however, framed it as another example of a woman of color being held to unfair, impossible standards, especially when speaking out about trauma, misogyny, and power dynamics. What most people didn't know was what happened in those first minutes backstage. According to a crew member, Meghan sat quietly for a long stretch, not speaking, not crying, just staring at the floor. She didn't rush out. She didn't scream. She processed slowly. Her husband, Prince Harry, who had been watching from a secure green room, reportedly embraced her and asked no questions, just offered silence, support, and privacy. And while the world was dissecting her tears, a conversation began to unfold behind the scenes, one that asked deeper question. Why is it so easy to provoke certain public figures? Why do some people, especially women in the spotlight, have their emotions weaponized against them? And more importantly, what does it say about modern media that breaking down earns more ratings than speaking up? In the hours that followed, Meghan's inner circle scrambled to assess the fallout. Brands she was working with began reaching out. Netflix executives, tied to her production deals, called emergency meetings. The Archewell Foundation's media liaison issued a no-comment directive. Yet behind the calm press releases, crisis management was in full effect. And meanwhile, Bill Maher, perhaps sensing that the moment had transcended the studio, went quiet. No tweet, no Instagram post, no late-night joke, just an eerie pause. And that silence spoke volumes. Across the country, network executives debated whether Maher had crossed a line. Had he gone from hard-hitting to harsh? Was this vintage Maher or something more personal? In truth, some insiders suggested Maher had deliberately ramped up the intensity for ratings, anticipating Meghan would be tightly media-trained and tough to rattle. But he underestimated the weight she carried. Not just her words, but her history, her marriage, her trauma, her fight for voice in a world determined to reshape it. As clips from the show reached millions, some edited to show only Maher's most aggressive moments, others focused only on Meghan's tears. The full picture always got buried beneath narrative warfare. To some, she was a victim of arrogance. To others, she was the embodiment of grace under fire. But here's the thing, there was no winner that night. Not really. The only clear takeaway was the undeniable truth that no matter how much fame, wealth, or training a person has, there's a breaking point. And for Meghan Markle, that moment didn't come from shouting or scandal. It came quietly with a whisper of "that's enough" and the dignity to walk away when the room turned hostile. And yet, the questions remain, was this Meghan's most human moment or a carefully managed PR strategy gone sideways? Was Maher being brutal or just honest in a world that rewards spin over sincerity? The public is still divided. What isn't up for debate? This moment has already changed how the media will approach Meghan Markle going forward. Not as untouchable, not as calculated, but as a woman who under pressure showed vulnerability, whether planned or not. And whether or not you sympathize with her, you remember that exit, that image, that silence. In the days following the viral interview, the ripple effects started to reach beyond just the realms of media gossip and into the machinery of Hollywood, politics, and even international relations. What had originally been booked as a thought-provoking conversation between two public figures had exploded into something bigger, a cultural moment, an unintended litmus test for how society processes discomfort, vulnerability, and confrontation. Meghan Markle's walk-off wasn't just a trending topic anymore, it was front-page news. Major outlets ran headlines dissecting her composure, while others questioned whether she had finally broken under the intense scrutiny that has followed her every move since joining the royal family. Talk show hosts debated it. Morning news panels debated it. Twitter, that was a war zone. And yet behind all the noise, something else was happening, a shift in perception. The footage of her trembling voice, the moment she glanced off stage, the slight hesitation before she stood up, it was all being analyzed with an intensity usually reserved for courtroom footage or national scandals. And depending on who was watching, the interpretation varied wildly. Some believed she showed strength by walking out, rather than allowing herself to be bullied on national television. Others claimed she revealed her weakness, that her carefully managed public persona couldn't withstand real, unfiltered questions. But here's where it got interesting. No matter the opinion, people were watching. A lot of people. The segment had become one of HBO's most viewed clips of the year. In just 48 hours, it had racked up millions of views across YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram Reels. Maher's team, caught off guard by the attention, tried to recalibrate. Sources from inside the show confirmed that Bill himself was initially unconcerned. "She couldn't take a few tough questions," he reportedly said to a staffer. "Not my problem." But as the headlines piled up, and as advocacy groups started chiming in, the tone began to shift. There were now whispers, not loud, but present, about whether the interview had crossed a line into bad optics. Even for a comedian known for provocation, the moment had touched a different nerve. Meanwhile, Meghan's team was working overtime. PR calls were made. Media allies were activated. A planned Archewell charity event was pushed back without explanation. Her next scheduled appearance, a women's leadership panel in San Francisco, was abruptly canceled, with insiders citing the need for space and time. The reality? Damage control was in full swing. But if you thought Meghan was going to fade quietly into the background, you don't know Meghan Markle. 3 days after the interview aired, a polished, pre-recorded video was released through the Archewell Foundation's official YouTube channel. Meghan, seated in front of a simple cream-colored background, looked calm, composed, and pointed. "There are moments in life when the best response is to walk away," she said, her voice steady. "When conversations stop being about truth and become about tearing people down, that's no longer a dialogue, that's a performance. And I choose not to perform." The video was short, barely 4 minutes, but its impact was immediate. It reframed the narrative. It put the power back in her hands. And most importantly, it made clear that she wouldn't allow one moment, no matter how viral, to define her. But not everyone was convinced. Conservative pundits responded with mockery, accusing her of playing the victim card yet again. "She wants the perks of royalty without the scrutiny," one commentator said. "She wants the spotlight on her terms only." Supporters, however, hailed the video as bold and necessary. "You don't have to agree with her to respect her choice to leave a hostile situation," one influencer said in a viral TikTok. "Walking away doesn't mean weakness. Sometimes it's the strongest move you can make." And while the public bickered behind the scenes, Meghan's team began quietly reaching out to sympathetic journalists, offering exclusive interviews and off-the-record clarification. These weren't apologies, far from it. They were subtle recalibrations, reframings, quiet reminders that, for all the noise, Meghan still controlled her story. Or at least, she was trying to. Meanwhile, Bill Maher remained largely silent. No follow-up remarks. No apology. No clarification. The move puzzled many. Maher, after all, was not one to back down from controversy. And yet, perhaps he too recognized that the moment had landed differently than he expected. Perhaps he knew that continuing to poke the bear wouldn't just reflect poorly, it might risk making him look like a man who couldn't read the room. Industry insiders began debating whether this marked a turning point for the talk show format itself. Was this the beginning of the end for confrontational interviews with figures who are already walking tightropes of public image? Was it a warning to producers that booking high-profile guests came with a new level of risk? Or was it simply another bump in the road, another viral scandal that would fade like so many others? The truth is, no one really knew. But one thing was clear: Meghan Markle had once again become a cultural flashpoint. And whether you were on her side or not, you couldn't look away. And there was one more layer no one expected: Buckingham Palace. Sources close to royal insiders revealed that there had been quiet but very real concern within the royal family. Not about the interview itself, but about what might come next. Meghan once again had the world's attention. And that meant if she chose to turn the spotlight back on the royals, it could get messy. The palace, already fatigued from the Oprah interview, the Netflix series, and the release of Harry's memoir, did not want another round of international PR warfare. So they stayed silent. No comment, no acknowledgement. But behind closed doors, sources say, royal aides were reviewing transcripts and video clips. They weren't taking any chances. And neither was Meghan. The days following Meghan's response video saw a strange and fascinating shift in public tone. What began as sharp criticism of her emotional walk-off slowly morphed into something more nuanced. People began questioning the very culture that had made such a clash inevitable. Commentators from unexpected corners started weighing in. From academic circles to mental health advocates, the conversation had widened. It was no longer just about Meghan Markle versus Bill Maher. It was about how we treat public figures, especially women, when they break out of the performative poise we expect from them. And the irony? The very show that had sparked it all real time with Bill Maher was set to return with a brand new episode just a week after the viral segment. The anticipation was through the roof. Social media was ablaze with speculation. Would Maher double down? Would he address it at all? Or would he do what many comedians do when backed into a corner, deflect with humor and try to move on? When the episode aired, Maher opened the show with a smirk as usual. So he began, drawing out the word with deliberate pause. "I heard I made a duchess cry." Laughter erupted from the live audience, but there was a noticeable tension beneath it, the kind that lingers when even fans aren't sure whether to laugh or wince. He continued, "Look, folks, I ask questions. I'm not here to hand out participation trophies or give royal massages. If you want that, go on Ellen." More laughter. But again, it didn't land with the usual gusto. The atmosphere had shifted. This wasn't just another edgy joke, this was commentary on a moment that had clearly hit deeper than expected. Critics were quick to dissect Maher's monologue. Some praised him for not backing down. Others accused him of dodging accountability. But one thing was undeniable: the public had moved on from laughing at Meghan to examining the environment that had led her to that point. And just as the conversation began to evolve into broader cultural critique, a surprising new figure entered the fray: Tyler Perry. Yes, the filmmaker and media mogul who had famously offered Meghan and Harry his private home during their early transition out of royal life, released a statement via his production company's official social media account. "Strong women don't cry because they're weak," it read. "They cry because they've been strong for too long." We should all think about what kind of world we're building when honesty gets mocked and tears become tabloid fodder. The post went instantly viral, gathering support across the celebrity spectrum. Oprah Winfrey shared it. Viola Davis reposted it. Serena Williams commented with 3 hearts and a raised fist emoji. In one unified moment, Meghan had become a symbol, not of weakness, but of emotional truth in an industry where truth often gets edited out of frame. Meanwhile, Meghan herself remained mostly silent. After her initial video, she didn't do interviews. No Instagram lives. No leaked tips to friendly publications. Her absence became a kind of statement in itself. Let the world talk. She would not feed the fire. But the silence didn't mean nothing was happening. Behind the scenes, her team was working on a strategy to reframe her narrative entirely. Meghan, always media savvy, knew the power of timing. And so, one week after Maher's dismissive jokes, Archewell quietly announced a new podcast project, one that would focus on uncomfortable conversations with women in power. The first episode? Titled When They Laugh at Your Pain. The announcement sent shockwaves through the media world. Was it a direct reference to Maher? Absolutely, but it was more than that. It was a reclaiming of the moment. A statement that even when silenced, Meghan wasn't going away. She was evolving, adapting, shaping the story in her own voice. Industry insiders speculated this might be the smartest move she had ever made, not disappearing, not retaliating, but redirecting. And sure enough, the preview trailer for the new podcast broke Archewell's previous engagement records. Listeners were hungry. Whether they were critics or supporters, they were listening. And then came the ultimate twist. Bill Maher's team reportedly reached out to Archewell's producers, not to apologize, not to clarify, but to propose a follow-up conversation. Sources say the request was met with silence. Meghan wasn't interested in rehashing old wounds on Maher's turf, but this didn't mean she was avoiding the tough questions. In fact, her first podcast episode, released just 2 weeks after the televised clash, tackled the very subject head-on. She began the episode with no music, no intro. Just her voice. I was recently in a conversation that didn't go the way I expected. I walked away not because I was weak, but because I've learned that not every stage deserves your story. Not every audience is ready for truth without armor. Listeners were floored. It was raw, vulnerable, and direct. Without naming Maher, she dismantled the power structure that had created the viral moment in the first place. She spoke about the toll of public scrutiny, about the trauma of being constantly dissected. But she also talked about boundaries, the right to say no, to walk away, to cry. The episode went viral. Even critics had to admit it was good. Really good. Meanwhile, ratings for Maher's next episode dipped slightly, not catastrophic, but noticeable. Analysts began asking whether the late-night provocateur model was losing relevance in an age where audiences demanded more nuance. Whether you loved or hated Meghan, you couldn't deny this. She had shifted the conversation. And perhaps that was the most stunning part of the story. Meghan Markle, once mocked for her fairy tale gone rogue, had managed to turn a moment of public humiliation into a broader movement about emotional honesty. She had taken one of the most uncomfortable experiences of her public life and used it as fuel not for revenge, but for transformation. As the dust began to settle, the noise gave way to reflection. Viewers began asking themselves why the moment had resonated so deeply. Why had a simple interview sparked such outrage, empathy, polarization? And the answer, perhaps, lies in what that moment revealed about power, gender, vulnerability, and control. About who gets to ask the questions and who is expected to answer them with a smile, no matter how sharp the blade. Meghan didn't smile. She walked away. And in doing so, she might have finally found the voice she'd been searching for all along.